Hi there, I'm Carla Sinopoli. I'm the director of the Maxwell Museum of Anthropology, and it's great to see so many people here today. I want to start with the Maxwell Museum's land acknowledgement. The University of New Mexico and the Maxwell Museum of Anthropology sit on and among the traditional homelands of multiple sovereign nations. We acknowledge the deep connections of Pueblo, Dene, and Apache peoples to the land and the significant contributions of past, present, and future Indigenous peoples and communities to life and culture in the greater Southwest, the United States, and the world at large. In acknowledging these connections, we express our gratitude for the opportunity to live, work, and learn on this land. We honor our relationships with Indigenous peoples and commit to working towards reconciling injustices, restoring voices, and realizing community going forward. And before I introduce the curators of this exhibition, I want to thank the co-sponsors, the Alfonso Ortiz Center for Intercultural Studies, the Department of Chicano Studies, El Centro de la Raza, the Center for Regional Studies, and the Latin American and Iberian Institute. And of course, I also want to acknowledge the work of our Maxwell staff, our curator of exhibits, Tony Gentili, and exhibit preparator, Chris Albert, as well as public program manager, Julian Carrillo, who's put together today's events. And finally, I want to also thank the members of the Maxwell Museum of Anthropology who are here in the room today. Your membership in the museum really helps support everything we do. And if you want to sign up, there are membership forms out in the lobby. So just a little bit about our exhibit curators. Gustavo García and Natalia Toscano are both doctoral students in the Department of Chicano and Chicano Studies. Both Gustavo and Natalia were raised in California. Gustavo in a family with Oaxacan Zapotec heritage, and Natalia with familiar roots in Jalisco. In addition to their academic pursuits, both of our curators are activists and educators with interest in art, activism, social justice, and transnational networks. And we're so grateful to both of you for bringing this exhibition to the Maxwell Museum. And I'll let our audience welcome you, and we'll learn more from you about your work.
Wow, I don't know what to say except, thank you for being here today. It's an honor to have you here with us. It's an honor to be able to share space with Colectivo Subterráneos, with Pavel, who I know is here in spirit, who's currently at another art kind of space today, being hosted by a really amazing kind of network of artists. Muchas gracias. Thank you to everyone on Zoom. Estamos intentando de hacer todo bilingüe, and so we have interpreters, and so it's a little bit of a chaos in many different ways, but please be patient with us. If there's any questions on Zoom, please ask them. Si hay preguntas, por favor, pónganlo en Zoom, y nosotros aquí nos comunicamos con Julián, que nos está apoyando con toda esa parte técnica. With that, we want to say good afternoon. Thank you for being here at this inauguration of Oaxaca Ingobernable. Estéticas, políticas y arte desde abajo, aesthetic, politics, and art from below. We begin by acknowledging the original peoples of these lands, Pueblo, Dene, and Apache, who for generations have continued to struggle against colonialism. As indigenous migrants, Mexicans, Chicanx people living on occupied southern Tiwa lands, we acknowledge the generations of settler violence inflicted on indigenous communities. With this exhibit, we seek to expose the hemispheric realities of indigenous and Black people, highlighting those who continue to live on their traditional lands, to honor those who were forcibly taken, and to spotlight those who are displaced across the continent. We acknowledge our shared histories of struggle and walk with you on this journey for justice. My name is Gustavo García.
And I'm Natalia Toscano.
And we are both PhD candidates in the Department of Chicano and Chicana Studies and co-curators of this exhibit. We want to thank everyone who made this exhibit possible, especially the many hands, ideas, and spirits who contributed to the blossoming of this vision. First and foremost, we express our deepest appreciation for Colectivo Subterráneos and Pavel Acevedo for their willingness and interest to participate. We extend our gratitude to Stephanie Tefan Sanchez and Giovanni Bautista for their artistic contributions to the gallery space. We thank La Familia Toscano for ensuring that all the fabric prints were sewn, measured, and ready for installation. And lastly, we extend our appreciation to Daniela Del Mar and Cecilia Flor for helping us weave paste the art in the Maxwell Museum. And a special thanks to Daniela for being here today and offering their tequio in the form of collaborative printmaking. This exhibit would not be possible without our collaborators and sponsors in the Maxwell Museum, including Tony Gentili, Christopher Albert, who worked tirelessly to get this project going and up on the walls, and to Julian Carrillo, who facilitated initial conversations and supported our vision every step of the way. We would like to extend a special thank you to Jonella Vasquez and the Department of Anthropology for supporting us and ensuring that everyone gets paid, because we know that's always an issue with the university. We are always grateful to the Department of Chicano-Chicana Studies, El Centro de la Raza, the Center for Regional Studies, and the Alfonso Ortiz Center for Intercultural Studies. Without their generous support and investment in this art exhibit and community programming, this gathering and show would not be possible.
Sorry. Okay, my bad. We were trying to get the presentation on the Zoom. And with that being said, Julian, some of the Subterráneo Colectivo can't get into the Zoom. So, heads up.
And if you need to stop us, please stop us. We know that this technical stuff is a pain, so please do.
Yes, thank you. And so, thank you so much, everyone. We wanted to offer this opportunity to do a gallery walkthrough for especially the folks on Zoom and our families. So Oaxaca Ingobernable explores radical printmaking practices of indigenous Oaxacan artists in Oaxaca City and Southern California. The exhibit is composed of wood block and linoleum prints. We also have short interviews and videos by Colectivo Subterráneos and Pavel Acevedo. Colectivo Subterráneos, or as we translate it into the Underground Collective, is a multi-generational group of Oaxacan artists who create relief prints and murals to illuminate social issues. The collective formally started in 2021 during the pandemic with 6 members and has since grown to over 30 artists. They maintain a multi-purpose space in the center of Oaxaca where they make, show, and sell art, as well as run a free art school named Escuela de Arte para el Pueblo, Art School for the People. Pavel Acevedo was born in Oaxaca, Mexico, and he currently resides in Riverside, California. His experiences in Oaxacan protests, including the 2006 popular uprising in Oaxaca City, which we're going to discuss, as well as movements in California, shaped the focus of his creative work. He uses linoleum and woodblock printing, as well as muralism, to engage with the deep and often overwhelming tensions he and countless other Oaxacans experience around migration, borders, and nation states. Acevedo draws on Zapotec storytelling and contemporary Oaxacan migrant experiences to blend the supernatural world with rebellious and life-affirming visions of being. And so for the people on Zoom, we want to offer this brief gallery walkthrough. And so inside the Hibben, you'll find the works of Colectivo Subterráneos, the exhibit, which is right out here. This exhibit brings together pieces from the following 3 series: Diaspora Negra, Black Diaspora, Diablos Oaxaqueños, Oaxacan Devils, and Los Nadie, the Nobody. In the entrance, you'll also see various signs created by Giovanni Bautista, which they're known as rótulos, so the welcome sign. Next slide.
So here we're giving a space for the people on Zoom to see the exhibit.
Yeah, and hopefully el tío César, who's in
Yeah.
Oaxaca.
Yes, and so when we were in Oaxaca, we were staying with my uncle, and so long story, many stories there, but we can talk about that at some point.
And then inside the Maxwell, if you haven't already visited, which is the building adjacent, we also have this We Paste wall. So in the Maxwell Museum, right in front of the exhibit, I forgot I have a script, which is right in front of the Nothing Left for Me, Federal Policy and the Photography of Milton Snow and Janae Bequeya, which is also a really beautiful exhibit. You will find the continuation of Oaxaca Ingobernable. In the alcove, you will see Colectivo Subterráneos art from the series Tianguis, which translates to market, and Diaspora Negra, as well as the art from Pavel Acevedo series, El Caparazón en las Nubes, The Shell in the Clouds, and other entitled contemporary works. You will also see a Oaxaca Ingobernable sign connected to red bandanas and black silkscreen bandanas made by Oaxacan artist Stephanie Tefan Sanchez. As I see many of you have, we created zines in English and Spanish with all the exhibit panel information. Please take them with you so you can share with others. You'll also find takeaway postcards featuring select art from Colectivo Subterráneos and Pavel Acevedo. We encourage you to collect them all. And as a reminder, later this month, from September 30th to October 5th, we'll be joined by Pavel, where he'll be hosting linoleum print workshops. We'll end the week at Albuquerque Zine Fest, taking place at the Sanitary Tortilla Factory on October 5th from 11 to 5, where Pavel will be doing silkscreen printing. So please bring your t-shirts, posters, any kind of fabric or other material that you would like to have printed on. And I believe it'll be free. All right.
Everything okay on Zoom? Yeah, okay. And so the emergence of this project, where does it come from? From March to August 2022, Arte América's Casa de Cultura hosted an exhibit, Boom Oaxaca, Conversación de Campo a Campo in Fresno, California. As the pandemic began to ease its protocols on traveling and in-person programming, we ventured to Fresno to visit what at the time felt like a one-time opportunity to witness this beautifully intentioned exhibit centering Oaxaqueños and Oaxaqueñas. We remember those days vividly because our dear friend García, who currently works at the Cheech Museum now, who served as a consultant for that project, took us to eat some tacos de camarón. During our visit, she shared her experience working on this major project and the importance of creating exhibits that center Oaxacan arts in the Central Valley of California, a place where many Oaxaqueños migrate to work in the fields and the harsh agricultural sector. Arte América, through their exhibit, created a space where Oaxacans were not simply hunched over figures in the vast vegetable fields along the 5 highway, but instead were at the center of our imagination. In the exhibit, we witnessed Oaxaqueños, specifically Zapotecos, Mixtecos, and Triquis, some of the more prominent indigenous groups in the Central Valley of California, dance, sing, and share their cultural traditions. We witnessed them as artists, teachers, and knowledge producers. Boom Oaxaca was a transnational and unapologetic representation of Oaxacan indigeneity and belonging. It was through this exhibit that we learned about Subterráneos and their work on visual rebellion. As we took our first steps into the exhibit, weed-pasted images of Zapata and Mujeres Ismeñas were plastered against the wall, and anti-fascist declarations of freedom spoke out against the Trump administration and the rising right-wing politics across the world. Their art incited a sense of righteous anger, a feeling of dignity, planting a seed of hope that the nightmares we live in will dispel. Chasing this visual story, we traveled to Oaxaca and visited various community print workshops and gallery spaces from December 2023 to January 2024. For me, this trip was distinct as I returned to Oaxaca with the intention to learn about the resistant artistic traditions of indigenous communities. Since the age of 10, my family and I have traveled to our community of San Baltasar Chichicapam, a Zapotec community in the municipio of Ocotlan in the Valles Centrales. As a young person, my family shared stories of our tenacity to live. At times we laughed, and at times we carried a somber weight as we remembered the migratory journeys across Mexico and into cities in the United States. Other times, we honored the collective resistant practices of Chichicapam, especially the time the whole pueblo rose up to fight off the Mexican military over a territorial dispute with the neighboring community. These stories fueled my desire to learn about how indigenous communities struggle for life. This time around, we made it our mission to learn about the resistant artistic histories in Oaxaca City. Following the trail of Boom Oaxaca, we went searching for talleres like Hoja Santa, Subterráneos, Armarte, Espacio Zapata, and other galleries that we learned about along the way. As we visited the space of Subterráneos, the collective was in the process of packing and moving as their space was being taken back by the owner to expand the neighboring hotel and or to convert the place into an Airbnb. Their workshop was displaced from the historic center to the edges, and though it did prove to be a good move as it now offers more space for the gallery and community art school, it was a reminder of how the tourist industry continues to push out locals into the periphery. As we walked the streets from gallery to gallery, we saw Subterráneos all over the walls. Their art told stories about the realities of Oaxacan people. We found the work of Subterráneos empowering because of their visual narratives calling out processes of displacement, of erasure, of co-optation, while their large, in-your-face, and beautiful art represented the spirit of unruliness and dignity. Luckily, before returning to Albuquerque, we had a chance to dialogue with Darinka. Muchas gracias por estar en Zoom, Darinka, to bring the work of Subterráneos to the United States. For us, the exhibit became an opportunity to talk about Oaxacan histories and to consider how Indigenous people from Oaxaca contend with processes of displacement, migration, and placemaking in Mexico and the United States. What was originally an art exhibit centering Subterráneos became something bigger, to create transnational dialogues through the radical artistic representation of Oaxacan people. It was with this mission that we extended the invitation to Pavel Acevedo. His artistic and community work of portraying the experiences of Indigenous Oaxacan migrants in unruly ways became an important entry for dialogue across state boundaries. Pavel, with his rebellious spirit, allowed for connections to be made across time and space.
So we want to emphasize why the reproduction of political art in the streets of Oaxaca is important for Oaxacan social movements and how art as social critique are foundational to Subterráneos and Pavel's praxis. Contemporary practices of relief printmaking denounced state violence, emerged during a major time of social unrest in 2006, where youth and community members reclaimed the plaza of Oaxaca City to denounce state violence. What was a yearly tradition of the Sección 22 Teachers Union to advocate for better working conditions in Mexico's educational system became a decentralized and widespread movement for justice against corruption and violence. On June 14, 2006, the police brutalized the teachers' encampment, and overnight the community mobilized. Ulises Ruiz Ortiz, the then governor of Oaxaca, employed brutal tactics to hyper-criminalize political organizing. The intense force utilized by the police and military activated local communities, and the creation of the Asamblea Popular de los Pueblos de Oaxaca, or Popular Assembly of the People of Oaxaca, known as APO, emerged. APO, through the mass uprising, created ungovernable conditions in the state by disrupting the everyday social, political, and economic governing practices in the central part of the city, right? This is the main plaza in Oaxaca City. Ungovernability in this moment reaffirmed Indigenous autonomy, a practice for many emerges from generational Indigenous knowledges of collectivity. The 2006 uprising exposed the conditional role of the state and demonstrated people power through the creation of autonomous zones. The barricadas, or barricades, were a manifestation of autonomy that allowed communities to fight back against the police and military caravans of death, creating physical barriers for protections and staking claim to the neighborhoods they aim to nurture. To produce alternative national narratives, people took over public radio stations and shared the ongoing struggles happening in the streets. Artists and youth took over the streets, creating visual declarations with spray paint, stencils, and relief prints to critique state violence and to once again reaffirm Indigenous resistance. What emerged from this confrontation between the state and local communities showed the world that Indigenous Oaxacan communities refuse to be governed under corrupt and dehumanizing structures. We focus on this particular time period to make a historical connection between the art movement of 2006 and the current practice of art making in Oaxaca City and Los Angeles through Pavel. Many printmakers in Oaxaca developed their artistic political printmaking practice through this movement, where quick and economic reproduction of art facilitated a wide dissemination of resistant representations across the city and beyond. Now, as Oaxaca City continues to experience gentrification, which many of us also experience, the state of Oaxaca continues to be targeted with modernizing projects produced by the Mexican state's fourth transformation, or La 4T, for those who are familiar with Mexican politics. And indigenous communities continue to reclaim spaces that continue to exclude and marginalize them.
Oaxaca exemplifies the convergences of many social forces at play. The historical project of colonialism has shaped the everyday social relations between the state and the people. Modernity paves the streets of the city, upholding the aesthetics and memory of Spanish Empire, while capitalism markets the cultural expressions of Native people across the globe. Politics of indigenismo thrive in Oaxaca City. In 1987, Oaxaca City was named a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The designation offers opportunities to preserve Mesoamerican archaeological sites, such as Monte Albán. In many ways, this designation upholds the memory of indigenous people as great civilizations who existed in the past and whose legacies must be historicized in the present. This discourse propels forward the idea that indigenous communities have disappeared. They once were and are no longer, and they only reappear during tourist seasons of La Guelaguetza, Todo Santo, Day of the Dead, and Mezcal tours. Oaxaca is at once a memory of the great indigenous past and a contemporary place in which the authentic Mexican indigenous experience can be consumed through food and culture. It is at this juncture in which Subterráneos and Pavel emerge, in a place below the romantic past, the hyperconsumption of Oaxacan tradition, and amongst the spirit of rebellion that has sustained a constellation of Oaxacan people. Similarly to the artists, our analysis is not fixated on examining individual consumerisms, but extends our thinking to be critical of the structures that have produced violence for indigenous and working people through colonialism, modernity, and major capitalist industry. As political artists, Subterráneo and Pavel are aware of how they are viewed under hegemonic eyes. They have developed what W.E.B. Du Bois refers to as double consciousness and what Gloria Anzaldúa terms as la facultad, to engage our senses and to become attuned to the contradictory positions of indigenous and Black people in Oaxaca. In the series Los Nadie, the Nobodies, Subterráneos draws inspiration from Eduardo Galeano's poem of Los Nadie to make visible the often invisible and ignored. This poem speaks to this double vision that both artists have, which recognizes how they are made legible in the power structures as working class people, as poor people, as a resource, as a social burden, and as indigenous and Black people. There is an inherent awareness of this truth that in this world they are seen as los nadie. Though this poem inspired one series, it offers us a lens to think about the complex reality of Oaxacan life, in which they are taught to think that they are simply unlucky in life. Yet as we deepen our analysis, it is clear that there is a foundational problem. Logics of European Western power place more value on money, property, war, and natural resources over life itself.
So we found the poem particularly profound and I think important to think about the series. And so we have it both in English, but we're gonna read it out in Spanish. Los nadie. Según las pulgas, sueñan las pulgas con comprarse un perro y sueñan los nadies con salir de pobres. Que algún mágico día llueva de pronto la buena suerte y que llueva cántaros la buena suerte. Pero la buena suerte no llueve ayer, ni hoy, ni mañana, ni nunca. Ni en lloviznita cae del cielo la buena suerte. Por mucho que los nadies la llamen, y aunque les pique la mano izquierda, o se levantan con el pie derecho, o empieza el año cambiando de escoba, los nadies, los hijos de nadie, los dueños de nada, los nadies, los ningunos, los ninguneados, corriendo la liebre, muriendo la vida, jodidos, re jodidos, que no son, aunque sean, que no hablan idiomas, sino dialectos, que no profesan religiones, sino supersticiones, que no hacen arte, sino artesanía, que no practican cultura, sino folclore, que no son seres humanos, sino recursos humanos, que no tienen cara, sino brazos, que no tienen nombre, sino número, que no fijan en la historia universal, sino en la crónica roja de la prensa local, los nadies, que cuestan menos que la bala que los mata.
The pieces offered by Subterráneos and Pavel in this exhibit are an invitation to learn from indigenous Oaxacan artists. The art is a production of their critique, a reading of power, and a response to the social forces shaping their everyday experience. Their art urges us to see Oaxaca from their point of view. Indigenous and Black people are often denied the right to construct their own images, to shape their own histories, to share their memories and cultures. The long history of otherizing people has converted dynamic societies into artifacts of study. Under the Western colonial gaze, indigeneity and Blackness as a colonial construct reduces them to primitive, small, less than, and in many cases, ugly. In response, Subterráneos and Pavel create these grand and beautiful pieces that respond to dominant Western modes of humanness. In this case, who is human and who is worthy of being treated as such. In the Hibben Center and in the Maxwell, many of the pieces are about 9 feet tall. Dignity is central to these images. These large pieces are acts of refusal to diminutive statuses that are imposed onto indigenous people. In Diaspora Negra, Black communities are depicted in chains under the conditions of enslavement. Here we are forced to confront the brutal history of chattel slavery in Mexico, and most importantly, to recognize the Black diaspora in Oaxaca. Subterráneos urges for a recognition of the humanity of Black life, to learn about their histories of struggle, and to see how they create a present and future. The Diablos Oaxaqueños becomes another way to see the cultural resiliency for Black and Indigenous people who use this form of the Diablo to create narratives of survivance. The practice of relief printing and the time, intricate care, and carving detail it takes to create is a testament to the love of the art that the artists have for themselves and their communities. There is an inherent rebellion, and each artistic representation is made to not solely exist in museum walls, but instead created to live in the streets while invisible places where people can interact, reflect, and dream. Here in Albuquerque, as it is in Oaxaca, indigeneity is consumed and commodified, and indigenous people are left to die or forced to live in challenging conditions. In Albuquerque, you can go to Old Town, buy indigenous Oaxacan weavings, go to a bar and drink mezcal and not know anything about indigenous Oaxacans. At the same time, you can go buy Pueblo jewelry, eat a Navajo taco, and know very little about indigenous struggles. In both places, indigenous people are invisibilized at the same time they are consumed, erasing their stories, struggles, and their very existence. The invisibilization of indigenous Oaxacan migrants, as well as the xenophobia, dehumanization, and exploitation of their being, criminalizes their very presence, creating inhumane living conditions across North America. In the midst of these tensions and challenges, indigenous Oaxacans refuse to die. Instead, through an ungovernable practice of perseverance and collectivity, we fight to live, we struggle to build collective spaces, to retain our cultural traditions, and to remember, create, imagine in a collective we. We walk around the city with dignity and respect, with our heads to the sky, staring into the clouds, thinking about our place of emergence, and praying to our ancestors. After all, we are people of the clouds. In the same way that Subterráneos and Pavel reclaims walls in Oaxaca City and Los Angeles, today we indigenous Oaxacans claim this university wall, these university walls, to bring to the forefront the stories and experiences of our communities, los Nadia who are often unnoticed, but who have a fierce tenacity to struggle for life. Thank you.
So thank you so much, everyone. We hope that you all, share this exhibit with others, but also join us as Pavel comes September 30th through October 5th. We're gonna have the majority of the workshops in the evening, and we do ask that you register so we have enough supplies, but please come and learn about the practice of grabado or relief print on linoleum. I can't pronounce the word. And we'd be so happy to have you all. It is a rotating workshop, so please be mindful of the locations, and we're so grateful that you all spent your Saturday with us.